Hello, everyone. This is Morgan McCabe, and this is my podcast about the importance of diversity in a classroom. All right. So a quick preview on what we're going to be covering today is I had a really close friend of mine, Ayanna Phillips, tell me about the first time that she realized that she was Black in her school district. So we'll be covering just some of that content that's going to be covering. So I'll begin by reading this article that Ayanna had written, and it's titled, "The First Time I Realized I Was Black," by Ayanna Phillips. Growing up in a biracial household provides a bit of different reality of diversity than the reality experienced by someone who grows up in a household where their parents or guardians are the same race as them, or at least are the same race as each other. For my experience, I had the influence of my white mom from Iowa and my Black father, who was a military kid and moved around a lot, but spent most of his time in a small town in Texas. Now, really, what was my reality at home, my experience at school were very different. I grew up in Olathe, Kansas, which is in Johnson County. Johnson County has a population of 544,000 people and is 86% white and is considered the richest county in Kansas. All of my school environments were typically 4 to 5 students of color, and the rest were all white. Since we were kids, race wasn't super prevalent in our interactions with each other. But when I got to 7th grade and went up to the middle school, that was really the first time I realized that I was Black and the people around me weren't. She continues, "My mom always tried her best to send me and my 2 siblings to the most diverse schools we could go to in our district, but my 7th grade year we couldn't work it out, so I went to a school that my house was placed in, Prairie Trail Middle School. PRT was a good school with extremely high test scores and great music program. I was so excited to be there and experience the special programs they had, but most of the schools I had gone to before didn't have the money to sponsor. Everything started out great for me. I felt like I was making a lot of friends and was experiencing a lot of opportunities in the big middle school setting. Then slowly, as October and November began to hit, I started to notice little comments being made that didn't hurt my feelings necessarily, but for some reason spiked a bit of confusion or made me feel a little bit weird when they were said. At the time, I didn't really have the vocabulary to understand what was happening, but now I recognize that those statements were microaggressions. I truly believe my friends and peers making these statements had no intention of hurting my feelings or making me feel like an other, but that's what ended up happening. I truly didn't even become aware of how much those comments were affecting me until I came to college. So for almost 4 to 6 years, I just went along with it. A lot of people of color can name a specific moment when they noticed and became aware of the fact that they were not the same as some of their white counterparts. But for me, it was really more of a bunch of small acts that all of a sudden came together one day and made me recognize what I had been experiencing. It started off in ways that seemed small. Comments like, "You're an inside-out Oreo. You're Black on the outside, but you act white, so you must be white on the inside." Looking back, I don't really know why I didn't find that offensive, but I truly didn't. We all laughed it off and went on our business. Things like this slowly stemmed into me truly identifying as the whitest Black girl, aka the only Black girl they talked to. Around this time in my life is when I became uncomfortable with things that had to do with my culture, like my natural curly hair, and kept asking my mom how to get my hair to look like my friend's hair because we all wanted our hair to look the same so we could all be pretty together. I started to want to dye my hair because all my friends had pretty long blonde hair and I just wanted to be closer to what they were like because that's who I needed to be. The whitest Black girl. It even got to a point when we would go to the pool in the summer. I would cover up with a towel when we were outside of the pool because I didn't want to get too dark in comparison to my friends, as if my dark skin was something for me to be ashamed of, just because my friends wanted to say they were the same color as the Black girl when they were tan. Now, I have no negative feelings towards these girls putting me in that situation solely because I wasn't even aware enough to recognize what we were doing to each other. Luckily now, those friends that are still in my life, we have all reached a point where we understand the wrongs in which we were doing when we were so young. Not that being young excuses microaggressions and the exclusion of diversity, but it was truly something that took a while for us to understand. I am positive that I was not the only person of color to have this kind of experience in a predominantly white area, but I also believe that having that experience truly led me to a place where I was able to appreciate my own diversity and the diversity of others even more in a school setting. Had I truly invested in the people of color around me, which were a lot more than I used to make it out to be, I could have had so many opportunities to educate myself on the beauty of other cultures, and I totally missed out on it. Now, as a 22-year-old woman, I look back on 13 or 14-year-old Ayana and realize how confused she was about the fact that she's allowed to be a black woman and that no matter how she acts, she truly is a black woman, and that's truly a beautiful thing that I'm able to see now. Those experiences shaped me in the way I experience myself and others in a very impactful way. I asked Ayana to write this for me today because I wanted to go into more about the importance of having diverse cultures and students in a classroom setting. When students are not given the exact experiences as everyone else, they don't know that at a young age. They assume that everyone is living the same way they are, and they don't understand the differences that are happening in the world. And so just bringing those in, if that includes different cultures and different religions and just different lifestyles in general, that helps students grow and learn and just gain a new understanding and acceptance of everyone else in this world around them. It also is something that can be taught not just through having diverse children, which is very important, but also having a diverse lesson plan. Teachers can include different music styles that are used around a lot. I just went to a lecture the other day that was about the lack of diverse literature in the world, how there's many books just typically, especially like children's books, are just typically written by white people, and that there's not a larger amount of popularity among children's books that aren't written by Caucasian people. And so just bringing in different diverse cultures reduces the factor of having students get shamed, even if it's just a joke or just a small microaggression about the color of their skin or the way their hair looks, and then they don't need to feel like they have to act a certain way. When students go to schools and they're immediately already around so many other people that are widely different from them, or even if they're some are still the same as them, it just gives them a wider understanding of what the world is like, and that the world is not all the exact same. There's people all over the world that are just like us, but even if they just look differently, doesn't mean that they're different kinds of people. And so I think just bringing that diverse understanding into a classroom is really important. So then students grow and become more impactful, and they start to teach others and become more accepted about all the differences that there are in our cultures right now. And so it's a slow process that's been coming a long way about having the inclusion of diversity in classrooms, and especially coming from a Kansas school. I myself did grow up in a school that had a large percentage of Hispanics, but still white and Caucasian was the majority. And so we learn a lot just from that, but we also don't see everything else that's going on around us. If you take your kids and you start to study different cultures that aren't like their own, or start to invite in guests from different countries, or even guests from different parts of neighborhoods and different parts of the city that they're not used to, that's a great way for them to learn and have more just almost an intelligence about what the world is and how it can be shaped just by the basis of the culture. And I also want to clarify that it is important to also promote the differences of students. You want the students to be proud of who they are. If that's differently, that's fine. You want them to be proud of who they need to be. If they feel like that they need to change their hair, like, yes, you want them to be proud of themselves, but them changing their hair is also them being proud of themselves. And so just identifying that their differences is a pro in the classroom setting, that you want that wider variety of students in your room, and you want a full acceptance of everything happening around in the world. All right. Well, that was my podcast, and that was covering Ayanna Phillips' story about her overcoming the struggle it was to fully identify and be comfortable within herself compared to around her peers. And that was discussing the importance of bringing wider diversity into the classroom, and that teachers can make that difference if your students are not fully diverse culturally in your classroom, bringing examples that educate them on different cultures, bring in music from different places, bring in literature written by different kinds of people, bring in, just create math problems that use names that aren't just John and Jim and Tom, and like just find ways to break the barrier of what that classroom has already been set. Like, expand and always find new ways to excel in your classroom and make any child that walks into your room be comfortable with who they are and who they would want to be in all of the settings. Alrighty. That's it. Goodbye.